line this time. He missed his boost stroke, but the form was right, which is why it still landed right. Schaefer yaks.
Say what?
Say what?
Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yak.
Woo!
Schaefer yak.
Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yaks. Schaefer yaks. Schaefer yaks.
Cool. Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yak.
Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yaks.
Disclaimer, I am not an expert. This content is meant to encourage safety and to educate on the dangers of whitewater kayaking. Extreme caution should be exercised when navigating hazardous water. Boater discretion is advised.
Whitewater kayaking is one of, if not the most, fulfilling sports. It's a harmonic dance between intrinsic danger and breathtaking scenery. It challenges your physical capabilities and mental tenacity. How does a kayaker take the next step? The progression into Class 4 and Class 5, safely, or more safely. As mentioned in the disclaimer, I'm not an expert. So I enlisted some advanced kayakers to help answer. They tell their stories, share their experiences, and give us their rules for Stouts.
The people you take with you when you're paddling Stouts, what kind of skill level or experience do you look for? Do you require everyone to have a reliable role? What kind of skill level or experience do you look for in the people? I'm not
going to the takeout of the green and being like, hey, does anybody want to go kayaking? Like, do you have a role?
They should already have one once you've gotten there.
Right, exactly. And so then it comes down to like more of an instruction side of things. So like when I work with Adriene Levknecht, like doing, yeah, exactly. Doing any of her client work, you know, you kind of have the talk, like, do you have a role? Can you only do one side, you know? And so, you know, for something like the Nantahala, obviously, no, we can deal with that. But for really anything above like a class 3-4-ish run, like even getting into the Ocoee, I mean, a swim on the Ocoee can suck. It can hurt. And I mean, it can ruin somebody's day. And so, you know, that's like, it's kind of a catch-22 where you want people to get better, but at the same time, I really like for a lot of the people that I paddle with to have a good role.
Yeah, you want them to have that experience before we're even dipping our toes in it.
Yeah, exactly.
I want someone to be at least as good as me or hopefully better when I'm going to push myself on anything, because that's just good business. So I don't know where Dane Jackson goes for help. But for me, it's not too hard. I can usually find someone that's better than me to go, hey, you know, let's go out and let's go do some fun things together. You know, you can find somebody.
It depends. You know, if I'm taking down the Elkhorn, you know, like that's the thing about training people. Like I have, you know, and that's the thing too, is about being a play boater, being in a full slice or a spud boat or whatever. You can have just as much fun on the Elkhorn. So I don't mind people taking on the Elkhorn or the Pigeon or whatever, because I take my full slice and wave wheel down it, you know, and have a great time. So it depends on the river. Like the Elkhorn, a lot of people on the Elkhorn don't have a reliable role. But then I will start giving them percentage, right? So I'm going to take you on the upper Pigeon. I want your roll to be at least 50%, right? If I take you down Big South Fork Canyon, I want your roll to be about 50%, right? I want you to like be 50% probability you're going to make the roll. Okay, I think that's enough to ask for. And then I take you down the Big South Fork Gorge section, the upper section. I would like your roll to be 75%. And I will give them that. I said, you need to hit your roll 75% of the time before I take you down the gorge. So I'm very specific with them as far as what my requirements to take them down the gorge, take them down the canyon, etc. And so they work on their roll, and then they'll contact me saying, okay, man, I think I'm hitting 75% of my rolls first time, I'm ready to go. And then I take them down and we'll see how they do. So, and then there's other things like, when you do your beginning creaking, like when I take somebody to Teleco, I said, listen, your roll should be, close to 90% at this point, and you should hit it on the first time when you're doing this creaking, because on the Teleco, when you start getting it creaking, you only got one shot at a roll. Because if you miss your first roll, you're going to be pushed into a hole, you're going to be pushed on a rock. So your roll needs to be fairly reliable, and it needs to be on the first try. And so I give them very specifics as far as percents before they progress to the next river. And there's certain things I look for, like, somebody has to be able to break down Jared's knee on the Teleco, catch all the eddies, make the moves, hit the knee, land it, do an acceptable job on Jared's knee before I will move them up to the next river. There's certain rapids that they have to be able to be gravy to them to be able to move them from that rapid. It's like, okay, now you're ready for Chattooga Section 4, or you're ready for Watauga, that kind of stuff, because you can do those moves.
I guess that too depends. Most of the time you want somebody that's got a good time to boof stroke, somebody that can roll every time, ideally. Ideally you don't want to be worried about them. If you have concern that you have to babysit, then you lean towards not taking them down, because at that point, they're not really ready for it. I want to take people to, if I'm going to show somebody down a river, I want them to have a good, fun day. I don't want them to be scared. I don't want them to be hyperventilating in an eddy. I definitely don't want them being at a point where they're like, hey man, this is too much, I need to get out. And then either have to figure out a route out, or help walk them around.
Definitely want them to have equal to more experience than me. They know how to read whitewater, they carry safety gear, they know how to react calmly in bad situations.
I found myself on Section 4 one time with someone that really had zero business being on that river. The dude was like, so the guy was like, oh yeah, I'm stepping into Class 4, super solid roll. I've been running like really good in Class 4 and stuff. And I was like, cool, like awesome. What rivers have you run? And he named off a couple that were like, that I didn't recognize. But he also had just moved to the area. So I was like, oh, like they're probably just somewhere. I think he had moved from somewhere out west. So I was like, oh, I just probably don't know what he's talking about, And I was like, what have you run here? And he said he ran, what is it called? I think Flat Shoals is what he's run. I don't know if you know what that is. No idea. All right. I didn't know either. So I was like, cool, we'll go run this. We put in a bull, and he runs bull fine. Doesn't look great. But I was like, oh, okay, we'll see how this goes. And then his first swim, that wave that everyone plays at on the river right side, like right at the beginning.
Surfer's Rapid, where everyone enters.
Yeah, he swam that.
That's my last swim.
Oh, you swam that too? Dang.
I got stuck in the under the It was like March 11th of last year or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the last swim. Yeah.
He swam it just running it.
Oh.
And I was like, all right, dude, yeah, no attempt to roll, nothing like that. And I was like, oh, this might be interesting, right? And then that rap that everyone does the attainment on, where you like attain up and like go around a rock and then come back down.
Elevator moves. Yep.
So we got there, and I was talking about attainment. He was asking me how to get better, because at this point I could tell he like shouldn't have been on this river. And he was asking me how to get better. And I was like, oh, like attainments. So we got there, and I showed him the elevator move, and then he swam trying to do the elevator move. And I was like, all right, dude, like we have to get you down this river because your car's at the bottom.
Was he at the lake or Woodall?
We had put in, his car was at the lake. And I was like, all right, dude, like, look, we need to get to the bottom. because it's just two of us, and it was like a Wednesday in the middle of the week. There's no one else out there. Rafting season already ended. I thought about telling him to get out at Woodall and try to find a ride, but again, just there's no real solution there. So I end up essentially sneaking and walking half the river with him. When we got to the Five Falls, dude. So we got to the Five Falls. I ran it, and I got to the bottom. And after Sock 'em Dog, I pulled my boat over to the side, and then I got out and walked back up to where he was. And he was like carrying his boat through the Five Falls, which is not easy. I guess entrance is really hard to walk. I didn't realize people. I've never walked entrance before, so I had no idea.
I haven't either, but none of that looks fun.
So I took his boat and I kayaked his boat down, and then he hiked down and met me, and then we finished the rest out. And this is not to like draw hate on this dude, but this is more just like, hey, sometimes you find yourself in a situation that as the trip leader for that trip, I made mistakes. I made poor decisions. And now this guy's on the river with me. It is my responsibility to get this guy to safety, and whatever that entails. And that's why, hey, we're walking the entirety of the Five Falls. Whatever it is.
For lower class runs, no, but once you start going 3 or above, you want to be pretty reliable. Because getting out of the boat
would be kind of your cutoff. Would be once you start segueing to class 3. Now it's about time. Like, you either need to have the reliable role or maybe not take the next steps up.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you require them to have like a Swiftwater rescue or certification? Do you look for people to have Swiftwater rescue experience, certifications, training?
I don't. I think you should.
Yeah, I would say so, definitely. Really, that's beneficial for anybody on moving water, period. I mean, seems like every year there's somebody that drowns on their local flat water run or something like that around the United States. Just flush it into a strainer because they don't even know, they don't know what that is. So yeah, definitely think it's beneficial, period. Just because you learn not only how to rescue people, you learn about common river hazards and things like that. So all great knowledge to know when you're on moving water.
Yeah, so something you would even recommend for someone who isn't even really trying to advance into class 4 or class 5 paddling?
No, I mean, I've recommended Swiftwater to people that are in wreck boats, like sit on tops and stuff, that are running things like the Carta K or Upper Hooch for us in Georgia. Those are 2 like pretty common class 2 runs.
If you're spending any time around moving water, you should go to a class and figure out how it works. Because it makes you more comfortable. They force you to swim. I'll plug for H2O Dreams because those are the guys that I do it with. I've done 2 with them, and they make you swim. So as kayakers, we tend to try not to swim rapids. So when you're forced to swim, you start to get much more comfortable in the water.
It's not something you ask or...
No, I'm not going to ask you if you've had training. Now, if we were to get into a situation where we're needing to unpin a boat or rescue somebody and somebody's standing there with a dumb look on their face, one, I'm going to direct them to do what I need them to do in the situation. And then if we get done and we're debriefing, and that might be when the question comes up and ask, have you ever learned formally any training? And if the answer is no, then it's like, man, come on, you should do that because you need to be able to help out. We're doing a dangerous thing here, and I want, I'm trusting you with my life, essentially. And if something bad happens and you don't know what to do and you can't help out, then the likelihood of somebody getting hurt or dying exponentially goes up.
Not necessarily a certification, but I do definitely want them to have, the skills to be out there to handle handle their own if something were to happen, like have a reliable self-rescue, know when you should run, when you shouldn't run, type deal.
So knowing your limitations.
Yeah, knowing your limitations, you know, knowing what gear to have, being able to strategize exit plans, things like that.
In all honesty, I can't think of the last time that, I mean, I've never taken a Swiftwater rescue course. I mean, we like it's kind of one of those things that's like intrinsically learned as you get to be a more like competent class 4 or 5 kayaker. Like, you know, every once in a while, like I'll take my throw rope out and I'll huck my throw rope a couple times. And like, I mean, I'm the first one to say like I could 110% work on my rope throwing skills. Like, and so that's something that if I'm bored and I don't have anything to do one day, like I'll unpack my rope and I'll do a couple throws with it. And like, you know, clean, you got to dry them out anyways. They get moldy. You got to make sure that they're still in shape. And yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but I can't, you know, I've never asked like anybody in the group, like, are you Swiftwater certified? Like, because the majority of, I mean, when I was 18, I didn't even know what Swiftwater rescue was, you know, like, I think I took a raft guide course when I was 18, but that was about it. When I was a student at World Class, we were taught how to set up Z-drags. I could still set up a Z-drag as fast as I need to, as long as I have the anchor points. You know, there were little things that that I was taught as a student at World Class that then I used later as a kayaker, which was really nice. And I mean, they do that. There's 14 students on the river together, you know, and people are going to swim, people's boats are going to get pinned places, and you know, they want the kids
and from experience at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
I typically look for someone who's been paddling for, you know, at least maybe 12 months. Someone who's had SWR training, someone who's got a reliable role. I also, you know, I'll drill somebody on their like repertoire, you know, like what runs have you been down? You know what I mean? Like, let's go through, well, what have you knocked down? How many laps have you had here or there, you know, or
trying to see what the mindset is for each role.
Right, and try to pick them apart and see, you know, what they say, and depending on what they say and how they word it, or you can tell a lot from a person as a paddler and gauge it and see, you know, where you feel about getting on the water with them. And I try to pick people who I know are going to watch my back, as well as, you know that I'm going to watch their back as well, you know.
So it isn't just their skill level or experience, it's also their mindset with regards to your safety as well.
Correct. Because if I get on a run and I run a rapid and I get in a situation that is quite dangerous, it could be life-threatening, I need to know that buddy over here on the bank is going to do it, or in his boat in the eddy is going to, you know, peel out and come to my aid, or maybe get out of his boat and get a rope ready or something, and not just be frozen, you know, in shock watching it happen. Or someone could feel like, oh, well, fuck that, dude. I don't want to jump in there. Like, I see what's happening to that person. Why do I want to put myself in that situation? Like, I don't want those type of people on the river with me. I need people that are willing to get into shit with me to help get me out.
I have a lot of views on this. that have come mostly from experience and being in kayaking for about 20 years. But they're not always, they don't always mesh with protocol with some of the bigger organizations. But Swiftwater Rescue it's like a sound man in a band. You only notice it when it's not good. And so you don't want to use Swiftwater Rescue. You never want to use this. This is like last case scenario. And so when you get to a rapid, and we'll take it down a level. Let's go to some class 3 boaters. We'll take it to class 2 boaters boating class 3. And so they're running at the apex of their skill level. They're stepping it up. And what you'll see a lot of times is these people will get out and there will be 4 or 5 land-based rope operators in place ready, and maybe somebody in a boat nearby. And the reason is because the skill level there just doesn't allow them to make in-boat on-water rescues. And so they have to rescue from the land. So your only shot is a rope. And that's where I would say, like, if we need 5 people with ropes, maybe this isn't the rapid, or maybe we're like a little far above the pay grade. And I've always heard it that you need to be a full level of kayaking better than the water you're in before you can effect a rescue there. So, or even 2 actually, to be super good at rescue. And case in point, if someone swims with me in class 3, I can usually get to them, the boat, everything. I'm right there beside them. And you move that up into class 4, like when I swam Chioa. Wade's there, he's waiting for opportunities to help, and you might have to wait for a minute, but then, okay, grab the paddle, he holds a tree, he swings me into the bank. Fantastic. You couldn't affect that with land-based because you don't know where I'm gonna swim. You'd have to be able to get there with the boat, and you have to be able to do something constructive. But if I had swam in class 5, there's a lot of places out there where you need a guy with a rope, and that's your one shot. And you really can't get in there with the boat to help them because that'll be 2 of you going down the wrong way. So you kind of just need to run it right. And when you kind of like get further up on that knife's edge, up on the pendulum of difficulty and consequence, it's better to step down into super consequential rapids and stouts versus using this as a step up. So there's a lot of places you can go, push your skill, make something kind of hard, a lot harder, but without consequences, versus coming into something that maybe isn't even that hard, but it can really mess you up if you mess up bad. A lot of goes into it. But yes, if I'm definitely pushing my skill, I want everyone around me to be able to have a mastery of Swiftwater Rescue, land-based and water-based, and just common sense, because some things you can't learn in school.
I definitely want them to have experience for sure. Certification, I've met lots of people that have Swiftwater certifications, but then they don't really use the skills, so the certification is, it's good to have, but I'd like people to have, because your question was experience for certification. Experience is far, far, far more important to me than the actual certification itself, and honestly, somebody that's just willing to jump out of their boat immediately and help is the person that I'm definitely apt to have on my team, even though they don't quite know what they're doing. At least they're out of the boat, because in my experience, grab that bitch is the best. Number one, assessing the situation is number 1, and then number 2 is grabbing that bitch as far as getting people out of situations quickly. So, so somebody that's willing to like jump out of the boat, grab that bitch right out of the way, like that's the guy I want to boat with and develop skills and do some Swiftwater rescue training, that kind of stuff along the way. But having that person on your team that's just immediately springing into action is really, really.
So it's more about like having that personality too, that willingness
to
try instead of just watching someone float down the river.
Yeah, that because you and I have both seen videos where somebody's been in trouble and a bunch of people are sitting in their boats floating around, and there's a couple of people helping out, right? I want people to be getting out of their boat and stuff and ready to spring into action, whatever needs to be done. Those people are the ones. Yeah.
Seconds matter. Every second.
It does. And I've seen people in West Fork of the Tuck. I saw this guy vertically pan completely underwater for over a minute, right? And so I didn't see him, but then somebody else saw him, and the person that saw him yelled, "He's underwater," and immediately jumped in their boat to ferry over, right? Sprung into action just like that to be able to get over to the guy and help out, rather than other people standing around, bystanders watching all this go on, you know? So
gear. What kind of gear do you carry? What kind of gear do you like your fellow paddlers to carry? When you're paddling Stouts, what kind of gear do you take with you, safety-wise or otherwise?
I at least have a couple Prussics, a couple of working, why can't I think of the word of them right now? Yeah, pulleys.
Okay.
I just woke up from a nap, so
I'm the worst on the river. I'm like, dude, grab me that thing. Like,
grab me that
I'm
thing.
like, the thing.
Yeah, and then webbing. Like I always, no matter where I am, I always have 15 feet of webbing in my PFD with me, just because I am so small that like I could be portaging something and the guys can all jump over something or lower themselves down off of something, and I can't. And so then I've just gotten so used to just like taking my pulley out and making like just a little bit of thing so that I can like lower myself down safely, so that I don't like end up in a heap at the bottom of this. Like I've embarrassed myself a couple times, so you learn.
Yeah. Is there a specific brand? Or like, have you tried different webbings that just didn't work? Have you tried different ropes that didn't work?
No, I just have it's just a 1-inch webbing. I think I probably got it from NRS. And it's just 15 feet long, and it's just what I just have that hanging out in my PFD. And then the nice thing about that webbing too is that it can be secondarily used as a leash. You know, if I have to go drag somebody's boat or whatever it may be. It's funny, like the whole leash conversation. I would never hook myself into a boat on a leash in anything over class 3.
Even with like what's the pull away? I don't see. Here we go. What's the pull away thing you called?
The safety.
Yeah.
I'm like
the safety. Whatchamacallit.
Yeah.
Even with
safety belt. A safety belt.
Yeah.
Well, for my boat, you know, I definitely make sure my boat's squared away, has a rope, has airbags in it. Can usually put an extra rope in there, a med kit, pin kit, depending on like which run you're on, because you know all these southeast rivers are full of rocks.
Yes, and
you have to learn to love them. You can't do anything but love the rocks here. So pin kits, med kits, things like that. Always have food, always have water. Winter time, you know, you need to bring a little extra. If you can, I like to bring like dry clothes in my dry bag. Hot hands are my favorite. If you ever see me at any of the takeouts around the southeast in the wintertime, you know I will have hot hands. I love those things. You can just throw them in your dry suit. It's like turning on a seat warmer. Yeah, bring something to start a fire with. I think most of us bring our cell phones nowadays. I would suggest not maybe putting it in your clamshell. It's not really a good spot for your phone.
Lesson learned. Feel like that was a personal attack?
You don't want every person to have a pin kit and nobody to have a med kit. Like you need to have, depending on the run, you need to have somebody who's gonna have a med kit, somebody who's got a pin kit, maybe somebody who's got a breakdown paddle. really everyone should have a breakdown paddle. But for me personally, I carry a pin kit in my PFD. I have a toe tether. I've got like 4 prusiks, 7 carabiners, 3 or 4 pulleys. I keep chapstick, Orajel, in case you get your teeth knocked out. You know what I mean? Like that has happened before.
And it will happen again.
Probably. That's
Even
why,
to the
like,
best
as of
paddlers.
recent, people have started wearing like mouth guards. I've noticed a lot of people are wearing more mouth guards. That didn't used to be a thing. At least I didn't notice. If you're getting on Stouts or remote runs, everybody should have a rope. Headlamps, because it is possible to get caught out there after dark. I've been there. It's happened to me twice. It is not fun to be out in the dark without a means of light or an ability to see. You know, it goes completely south if you don't have that. Toe tether, possibly Flex Seal tape. That's a good one to keep. When I was on Tallulah this past weekend, there was a guy we had pulled up in below a rapid, and his boat was cracked, like huge cracks. And he's in like the middle of the gorge, we're only like halfway down. And they were able to find someone who had some Flex Seal tape, and he was able to seal it up enough to be able to get out of the gorge.
Now I carry a full out like breakdown, because I know that there's been a time when I needed it, and there will be times when others needed it. Actually, when we were on the Teleco, I let John use it because he lost his paddle momentarily.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so John used it. And then just this last weekend, like 3 days ago, I was on the Watauga when Anthony lost his paddle, and we were able to get his paddle back, but for a second we thought he was going to use the breakdown. I carry a float bag, right? Please have a float bag. just in case you swim. No one wants to be the guy that's like, hey, your boat doesn't exist anymore, because we couldn't do anything because it doesn't have float bags in it. So then I usually have a pin kit, and it's just your standard kind of like pin kit. I recommend building your own pin kit instead of buying a set. That way, one, you're forced to become more intimate with whatever components you're using, but also because you're not just buying some like set that someone else put together. Pin kit, usually carry a couple extra snacks. I usually carry some camera stuff, so like GoPro batteries, things like that. I carry one of those like hand saws, the little like rope saws where you hold both ends and you kind of just like.
Oh, yeah.
One of those. And then I carry water purification tablets. What else? Fire starter, and a way to start a fire. Carabiners, obviously all your regular stuff, whistle, throw bag, things like that. Essentially, I carry enough stuff for me to feel like I would survive a night if I got left on the side of the river.
Definitely a throw rope. Like, everybody's got to have a throw rope. I mean, the throw rope comes in. I mean, we're using our throw ropes constantly for all kinds of things, you know. And then a knife comes in handy. But it's funny, and then I have we had one boater that actually got lost in the woods. He wasn't with my group, but what happened was my group split into 2 groups, and there was a group that was going to do another run, and then we took off, and then that group that was going to do another run, they had one of their boaters broke his boat and had to hike out, and he got lost in the woods and had to overnight in 20-degree weather in wintertime, right? And so we had a big awakening, eye-opening experience from that. So after that, we all carry like a little waterproof first aid kit on our PFD that's got like a little cotton ball, a lighter in it, a little flashlight, all that kind of stuff to be able to overnight now. Because after that experience,
was he able to start a fire? Did he?
No, it was just him and his dry suit. That was it. And so what he did was he huddled down in the middle of these rocks and pulled himself into he had a Kokatat dry suit, which really speaks to how quality of gear it is, but he pulled himself into his Kokatat dry suit, so his latex gasket was up above his head and pulled himself in. It was able to survive the night in 20-degree weather overnight in the woods. So we found him the next morning. I mean, he was hypothermic and everything, but he made it. But that's all he had. But after that, we carry, and Michael Broadwell actually makes these kits and stuff, these little waterproof kits that has like a cotton ball that's soaked in petroleum jelly and matches in it, little flashlight and all that kind of stuff. And we carry them in our PFD, and then then the basic stuff like the knife, and I've got like some webbing and pin kit and all that kind of stuff. I carry a toe tether, but I keep it in a pocket because I have friends that had a friend that died up north, because she had a toe tether that got trapped on a branch that she drowned. So after that, I don't carry my toe tether on my green jacket. I keep it in a pocket and pull it out and tow a boat when I need to tow a boat. That Flex Seal tape, because it sticks to wet surfaces and it's really kind of thick, I feel like is a vital piece of equipment to get you down the river, because if you crack your boat, you can just put a piece of Flex Seal tape on the inside of your boat and you can boat the entire rest of the day. I boated one boat for almost 2 years that had Flex Seal tape over a crack on the inside that was not welded for almost 2 years, and I had no problems with it.
I think in the higher levels of whitewater, I think the mantra is all the gear all the time. And I think that's good business. If you're going on anything of any significance, your pin kit, your throw rope, first aid kit, float bags. I mean, some people, I've forgotten float bags. I'll admit it. And
I've done it.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of stupid stuff when I don't have float bags.
I haven't paid the price for not having my float bags, and it's always been on something not as bad. Usually I'm kind of on my game if I know I'm kind of stepping it up a little bit, but yeah, all this stuff all the time is the right answer. And you can put so much stuff in there that it weights your boat down a little too much, and I've seen people go overboard. But winter paddling, if you're going in a gorge that requires a full day of good paddling to get in and get out, there's no room for error there. If someone does pin a boat up, what are you going to do? Like, can you hike out? Is it a cliff? Is it cliff engorged? Do you have a way to start a fire? Is there any food? Is there any kind of blanket? If someone's got an injury and you need to leave them to go get help, are you going to be able to provide them some warmth if they're immobile? Like, can you set them up to make it a few hours? All these things you should think about. I have some friends that do not creek in the wintertime just for these exposure concerns, and they'll do their creeking in the summer. I don't really go by that. I just kind of bring a little more stuff in there. So all of it.
Obviously, regular stuff, boat, paddle, skirt, PFD, helmet. But beyond that, somebody in the group should have a breakdown. You should have at least one good first aid kit. And then everybody should have a throw rope. And at least the majority of your group should have a pin kit. Because sometimes you have to, you only carry a limited amount of stuff, so sometimes you have to put two of those together. And, headlamp. Don't want to get stuck out at night without a light source. So that's always the thing. And yeah, and then whatever appropriate clothing. So like this time of year, obviously a dry suit, dry top for shoulder season, and then that's it.
Can you kind of break down what you have in your pin kit?
4 carabiners, then I have 2 pulleys, 2 prussics is what I've got, and then a 20-foot piece of tubular webbing, 1-inch tubular webbing.
Summertime flows on the green when it's lower and people are just full slicing and it's just like super chill. Nobody has shoes on, and I'm just like, I will never go kayaking then. I won't.
Have you ever?
Because if something was to happen to me, and they had to they were like struggling to get up the rocks because they didn't have any shoes on, I'd be pissed.
Or you'd be dead.
Or dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Shoes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make an asterisk of that. Please wear shoes, or Adriene will kick your ass.
Yeah, shoes and a throw rope. Those are kind of my two. Yeah. Like, I won't really do anything. There was one day I was training for the green race one day, and I switched boats, and I got to the put in, and I realized I didn't have a throw rope, and I immediately let everybody know. I was like, PSA, I do not have a throw rope. I was like,